DreAllDay.com.
You are now tuned in to the show where you learn the discipline to show up day after day to do the work, the confidence to put yourself out there boldly and authentically, and the mental toughness to continue showing up, doing the work, putting yourself out there, even when the success you've expected to achieve has yet to be achieved. And on top of all this, you get a huge dose of personal initiative, which is the go-getter energy that moves any one of us, including yourself, to go and make things happen instead of waiting for things to happen. And then we put all this together into one bundle, one package, one mindset, one method, one philosophy, one book, one show, one daily masterclass. It is called Work on Your Game. My name is Dre Baldwin, also known as Dre All Day, and welcome to the show. And today's topic is why you need to go too far. Yes, you heard me correctly. Why you need to go too far in life. Now, you are probably thinking to yourself, well, Dre, I don't want to go too far in this situation. Going too far, by definition, means maybe I've overstepped my boundaries. Maybe I've put myself in a position of danger. Maybe I put myself in a situation where there's going to be some type of retribution for the actions that I'm taking. Maybe I'm going to offend somebody. Maybe I have gone into water that's a little bit too deep, or that I can't swim in, or put on shoes that are a little bit too big that I can't walk in. Why would I want to go too far, Dre? Why would I even want to do that? Why would that make sense? Right now you're already starting to feel, when you feel yourself, or when you think yourself that you have gone too far in a situation, you start to feel a little bit of fear. Because going too far, again, by definition, means you stepped outside of your comfort zone. You stepped outside of your range. And stepping outside of your comfort zone is not always a good thing. There's a reason that the comfort zone exists. There's a reason that fear exists, is to keep us safe, is to keep us from doing things that are stupid, is to keep us from putting ourselves in dangerous situations from which we cannot extricate ourselves. So why, with all that being said, would I tell you that you would need to go too far? Now, let's be clear. I'll give you a disclaimer here that you should probably already have in your mind, that what I'm about to share with you here today is to be used on a case-by-case basis. I'm not telling you that every situation in your life you should go too far. I'm not telling you that the speed limit says 55, you should go 100 just because I got an episode called Why You Need to Go Too Far. If you're talking to your parent or your boss or your teacher, and they have given the final word on the situation, there's no further discussion. I'm not telling you that you should keep pushing it, because you might put yourself in a position of danger. So this is something that you need to utilize your wisdom with this, what I'm about to share with you here today. In other words, know when to use it and when not to use it. But understand that the time to use it is not all the time, and the time to not use it is not all the time either. Meaning, there are times you need to use this. Just, again, use your wisdom that you get from experience in life. Experience comes from making mistakes. All that being said, let's go to our points. And before I do that, actually, let me remind you, I got a text line where I want you to send me a text and tell me the most valuable insight, the best nugget that you got from this episode. My number is 305-384-6894. Again, 305-384-6894. Point number one, the topic once again is why you need to go too far. Point number one, due to the fear instinct ingrained in us as human beings, as we just talked about, what you see as, quote, too far, close quote, is probably not far enough anyway. Just because of the fact that we are all wired for fear, or the fact that you've lived this many years, this many days in your life, you have to be wired for fear, because you had to. That fear, again, is a good thing. Fear is not necessarily a bad thing all the time. Fear is a good thing, because fear keeps you from driving too fast in traffic. Fear keeps you from trying to cross a highway on foot. Fear keeps you from putting your hand on a hot stove. Fear keeps you from doing things that will put you in a bad situation in life. All right, so fear is a good thing. We are wired for it, and is one of the main things that keeps us alive. But because of that wiring, many times when we're in situations that will not put us in danger, they're not going to put us in a life or death situation, it's not going to hurt us, but because we have that wiring for fear, we hold ourselves back from certain things that would be opportunities if the fear wasn't screaming so loud in our subconscious minds, or even in our conscious minds. Your aim, because of your fear, often is much lower than how far you could safely go. But again, this word safely, that's the operative word in the statement, because what is safe is relative. What I see as safe may not be safe for you. Some people feel safe driving their car at 85 miles per hour, and some people feel deathly afraid of a car going 85 miles per hour. So it's all very relative. Some people feel afraid of speaking up in a big meeting and saying something that they know may offend a few people, or other people look forward to the opportunity to do the exact same thing. So the fear wiring in all of us communicates to us in different ways at different times, again, given our state, our mental, physical, emotional state, and given the situation that we happen to be in. But the wiring exists in everybody. So what I'm saying here is that wiring, most of the time, pulls us back. All right, it keeps us from going as far as we could go, because we're like, all right, I'm good enough in this space. Why try to go further? All right, why try to go further? I might get myself in trouble. I might piss somebody off. I might get somebody mad at me. I might get fired from my job. Somebody might want to fight with me. Somebody might start an argument with me. So you have to figure out what the version of too far is for you. For you to figure out your version of too far, you got to test the limits. You got to see how far you could actually go. You won't know what that is until you get to the top of that mountain, so to speak, and you see what the next mountain is to climb. So you have to aim for more than what you'll actually do. In other words, if you think you can get to a level, level 10, aim for a level 8. Let me back. I got that backwards. If you think you can get to a level 8, aim for a level 10. You aim for the level 10, the fear wiring within you is going to hold you back from doing everything that you could do, saying everything that you could say. But because you're aiming for the 10, the fear holding you back will still get you to that 8. So aim for more than you need. In other words, we've heard the cliche. Shoot for the stars. If you shoot for the moon, rather, if you miss, you'll still be amongst the stars. The reason why you need to go too far, again, a relative term, is because your fear instinct that all of us have, and is not a bad thing, is going to pull you back. It's going to slow you down. It's going to cause you to pump the brakes when you don't really need to pump the brakes, but you won't know that you didn't need to pump the brakes until you have gotten to the point and you realize, oh, this isn't as bad as I thought it was. This isn't as dangerous as it looked. This isn't as scary as everybody else makes it sound. But again, in order to be an exceptional person, to be willing to quiet that fear and act in the face of that fear, you got to be willing to do exceptional things, which is, one of those exceptional things is acting when there is fear that is screaming at you, telling you not to go. Most people, when that fear is screaming at them, telling them not to go, they do absolutely nothing. Actually, the fear never has a scream in them. All the fear has to do is look at them, and it stops most people in their tracks. You want to be exceptional, you got to look at that fear eye to eye and keep moving anyway. Point number 2. Today's topic, once again, is why you need to go too far. When people see that you're willing to go too far, this is the second point, they'll get the hell out of your way even when you're not going too far. When people know that you are willing to push the limits, when you are willing to step outside of your and maybe their comfort zones, when you're willing to step outside of the group's comfort zone, when you're willing to push everybody in the room outside of their comfort zone because that's just what you want to do, when people know that you're that type of person, when that type of reputation precedes you, what happens is people will give you a wide berth. People will get out of your way. People will be a little bit, they'll be additionally cautious when addressing you, when confronting you, when dealing with you, when saying anything to or about you, because they know that you're willing to go too far. This is the concept of, as I said a moment ago, your reputation preceding you. When people know that you're willing to take it to a certain level and they're not willing to take it to that level, they don't even risk things going to that level because they know that they don't want to go there. So they know that you will, so they just fall back and they just let you do whatever it is you need to do. And this is something that I've talked about. I don't know if I talked about it here on the show. I probably have, but in my books I've talked about this, definitely on my Instagram stories. When you are willing to take things further than other people are willing to take them, most of the time you never have to step into that further, whatever that further would mean to you. You actually never even have to do it because people know that you will, so they won't risk it. They won't test you. Oftentimes when people are testing you to see how far you'll go, it's because they have a belief, because remember, every human being wired for fear. They have a belief that your fear is going to stop you from going to a certain level. So they're going to keep pushing you until you get to your limit, till you get to the edge of your comfort zone, and they know that you'll stop because they're making a bet that the edge of your comfort zone is not as wide as the edge of their comfort zone. That's how they can beat you. But when they know that your comfort zone extends a bit further than theirs does, they won't even test you to go to the edge of yours because the edge of yours is further than the edge of theirs, which means they're going to be the ones who are uncomfortable. They're going to be the ones who are too far, outside of their range. They're going to be the ones who are in a very unpleasant situation. So they're not even going to try you. They're not even going to make you do the thing is that you're willing to do. All of us as humans because of our wiring, we have very long memories for anything that triggers or has triggered fear or anxiety in us. A word that we all know about that can be used to describe what I just defined is called trauma. Anything that has triggered or could trigger, could trigger fear and anxiety within us, we call it trauma. All of us have been through some form of trauma in life. Some of us physical, some emotional, some mental, spiritual. All of us have been through some form of trauma. And again, with all of us human beings, we're all wired differently. We are all unique. Some of us have more acute memories for that trauma, and we are more acutely aware of triggering that trauma again in the future based on things that have happened. And some of us wear that trauma on our sleeves a little bit more than others. Many of us can feel trauma, maybe internally, or maybe at least a twinge of trauma, but not show it. Where others, they can feel that same twinge and is written all over their face and they just completely fall apart. Again, not necessarily a good or bad thing, depending on what you're doing for a living. In some places, you don't want to show too much trauma. Let's say, for example, if you're a professional card player, you don't want to show all your emotions on your face. So if you're an athlete in a combat sport, you don't want to show when you're hurt because your opponent will take advantage of that. But there are other places in life where showing all those emotions matter a lot. I think someone like Oprah, who's a talk show host, the fact that she displays her emotions on her face is what made her a very popular talk show host. So it works in some places, doesn't work in other places. The point is, all of us have been through trauma in life. But when people see that you're willing to deal with situations that might cause them trauma and it doesn't bother you as much, they're not going to push you. They're not going to bother you. They'll leave you alone. They'll go find an easier target, or they'll just forget the whole thing. You going too far in the eyes of another person, what they see as too far, is something that they'll never forget. This is the point, the reason I'm bringing up the whole trauma thing. If you're willing to go, if your comfort zone extends past the trauma level for another human being, that human being will leave you alone from that point forward. Unless they find ways to extend and expand their own comfort zone. Then maybe they'll come back and deal with you again. Maybe they'll come back for a rematch or a first match. Maybe they ran away from the first one. Thus, when you're willing to go too far in the eyes of other people, you're willing to go further than other people are willing to go, they will not put themselves in the line of fire of having to combat you or deal with you, and they will smartly give you space in which you can maneuver. This is one of the benefits of being willing to go too far. And understand, when I say go too far, this can mean in many different ways. This can mean verbally, it can mean physically, it can mean mentally, it can mean emotionally, spiritually, and whatever ways you may come across or go against other people. And this could be with any living thing. This could be with an animal, this could be with a pet. Now you have a pet, you're around an aggressive dog. The dog senses that you're afraid of it. When it barks, then it's gonna keep using its barking against you. But when it notices that the barking doesn't bother you, doesn't faze you, then the dog's probably gonna stop barking at you because it sees that it doesn't work, or it doesn't get the dog what it wants. And all animals can sense fear, human beings and these animals that can't talk. So people can sense it in you, and you can sense it in other people. Your willingness, when you expand your comfort zone of being willing to go what others may deem as too far, that's when you can create an advantage on those other people to the point that you don't even have to use that advantage. It's just the fact that they know that you have it, you won't even have to bring it out. That's the benefit of having a reputation that precedes you. It does all the work for you with you not needing to lift a finger. Point number 3, today's topic once again is why you need to go too far in life. Number 3, it's fun to see that you have the ability to face down challenges by being willing to go where others are not willing to go. It's a benefit to your life in several ways. One way is that you actually conserve energy. When you're willing to go further, people don't bother you. It's kind of like if you're in school and there's a bully, a schoolyard bully that likes to mess with everyone, but the bully knows that you're willing to fight. Even if the bully could probably beat you in a fight, the bully is not even going to risk getting in a fight with you, because why fight somebody who's going to fight back? The bully will just mess with somebody who's not going to fight at all. Now you conserve energy. Now the bully's going to go mess with somebody who might have to prove that they're willing to fight. And that takes a little bit of energy to prove you're willing to fight. It takes no energy to not have to fight because people know that you're willing to. You won't even have to use the skill that you have. It's like the very skilled samurai. If any of you have read any of those stories from the Eastern world, the very skilled samurai who can kill people with their sword, they don't even have to use their sword that much. They still carry it and they still keep it sharp just in case somebody tests them. But because they have the sword with them and everyone knows how sharp that sword is, nobody bothers them. But the unproven samurai has to fight all the time because people are not sure you're capable. People are not sure you can do anything with it. So when you know that they know that you have the ability to go further, people leave you alone because you know what you're capable of. And even if you don't have to use the ability again, or you don't have to use the ability so often, there's a high dose of confidence that comes from knowing that you can. Now, how would it feel for any of you right now to whom I'm speaking directly to you with what I'm talking about here today? How would it feel to know that because of your willingness to go too far, you don't even have to go too far anymore because you know that everybody in that room knows what you're capable of doing? And thusly, you don't have to use it anymore. You don't have to pull your sword out. You don't have to raise your voice to anyone. You don't have to physically exert yourself anymore because people know you're willing to, so they don't even risk it. How would that feel for you? How much time and energy would that save for you? How much would your confidence go up if you knew that everybody else in the room knew that same thing about you? Now, how do you get this? You got to be willing to do it. And at some point, somebody's going to test you. Somebody's going to challenge you. Somebody's going to make you prove it. So as long as you're willing to prove it, this will save you 1 ounce, as they say, an ounce of prevention is worth a pound of cure. And sometimes the prevention in life is doing something so that you don't have to fix something later on. Doing something now so you don't have to fix something later on, since you know what you're capable of. Not using your power is the power in itself. It's like being, as they say, the lion in the room. If any of you ever been in a room with a lion, I have not, except in the zoo. I don't count that. But let's just say there was a live lion in the room, not in a cage, but the lion is just sitting there. All right, the lion doesn't have to roar. The lion doesn't have to kill anyone. The lion doesn't have to attack anyone. As long as the lion just sits there, everybody knows that the lion is there. The lion doesn't have to move. The lion doesn't have to move a muscle or say a word. But because everyone knows what the lion is capable of, nobody bothers the lion. That's being the lion in the room. And again, everyone wants you to understand, this is not about you being confrontational with other people or arguing with people or fighting with people or anything like that. It's just about your willingness to handle any situation as it comes and being willing to go as far as necessary to handle that situation based on what the situation is in your own eyes. Becoming the lion in the room means you don't have to do what a lion does. Maybe you got to do it a few times, but you don't have to do it that much. Right? The king in the jungle doesn't have to do that much killing. Believe it or not. It's just everyone knowing that the lion could kill is what causes everybody to leave the lion alone. Let's recap today's class, which is why you need to go too far, also known as how to become that lion in the room. Number 1, due to the fear instinct ingrained in all of us as human beings, what you would see as too far is probably not that far, relatively speaking, once you get the experience and you realize how much your fear is holding you back. Your aim then should be further than where you think you can go. So even when your fear instinct does kick in, at least at first, and slowly you can wear it down to where it's not holding you back as much, you'll still reach the aim that you went for. In other words, aiming for the moon, you'll still land amongst the stars. Aim for more than what you actually need. Point number 2, when people see that you're willing to go too far, they will get the hell out of your way even before you do the going too far. You won't even have to go too far. Because all of us have long memories in our minds, emotionally, in our spirits, for anything that triggers fear or anxiety. Some people call this trauma. You've been willing to go too far is a trigger for trauma for other people if they see what you're doing is going too far. So they will not put themselves in that line of fire and they will give you room. And point number 3 is very fun and is a big boost to your confidence to know that everybody else knows that you're willing to go further, and thus so they leave you alone. Because they know what you're capable of and you know that they know. And even if you don't use the ability that often, there's a big amount of confidence that comes with the fact that nobody's even going to bother or challenge you. Not using power is power in itself. That is being the lion in the room. The lion does not have to roar or pounce or kill because everybody knows that the lion can pounce and kill, and that's why nobody bothers the lion in the first place. Send me a text. Tell me the most valuable insight, nugget you got from this show. My number 305-384-6894. Again, 305-384-6894. Work on your game. Dre all